And now, let's join Chris Scott, Lowell Sun Enterprise editor, for his Sunspot interview with Jim Leary, former Lowell City Councilor and now candidate for State Senate.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Scott, the Enterprise Editor at The Sun. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Sunspot. With me is a familiar face. I don't know whether to call him a former school committee member, city council candidate, or city councilor, candidate for state rep, but it's Jim Leary.
How you doing, Chris?
Good, Jim.
Alumni at the city council and school committee. Yeah, how you doing today?
I'm well, thanks.
Good.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I think the last time we had you on, it was last fall before the city council election, when you were here espousing the benefits of putting the new high school
at Colley.
Yeah. That didn't go so well for you.
No, not personally, but at the end of the day, that was the right vote to take, and it was the right thing to do.
And you stand by that vote?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
So you're back today, pursuing a seat that you couldn't grab on back into, I think it was 2012, 2013. That's the 18th Middlesex District seat.
Yes.
The seat that was formerly occupied by this former city manager, Kevin Murphy. Roddy Mon is the incumbent there now. He's seeking re-election, as are a couple of other fellows, including yourself. Tell us why you're going. Why
am I going for the seat?
Why you're running for that seat? What do you think your advantages are? And what is it about the current state representative that
let me dive into what are my advantages. I mean, I've been elected as a school committee member, 5 terms, and I topped the ticket the last term I was in there, and I was a city councilor for a term. Took on a major issue in the city that is desperately needed, the high school. So I have a lot of the experience and the knowledge of what actually happens in city government and why and how the state can actually be an asset to the city in terms of bringing in funds and infrastructure and support. I know how to work with the superintendent. I know how to work with the city manager, Eileen Dunno, who is a good friend of mine. I work well with the superintendent that's there now, so I understand the issues, and I won't have to really understand and learn how to get things done. I'll know how to get things done. The reason why
But do you understand the issues at the State House?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's something that I've always followed. I think something that really what the State House does is espouses to help and really reform and help city government as much as possible, especially in a city like Lowell, where we're desperate for funds. Special education costs keep rising in the city. That's one of the reasons why the school department is in a deficit and continually finds challenges to meet their needs. I understand that problem, can work with people at the State House to address it, both from a financial standpoint and from an infrastructure standpoint.
Tell me why you decided to seek this seat specifically and not just try to get back on the city council.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is people have come up to me and said, we want you to run for the state rep seat. You should have won it the last time you ran it.
What did you finish in that Democratic field?
Second by about 50 votes. And a lot of my good friends who are running and are now supporting me as I go forward with the state rep race. And the reason they've come to me.
And you're referring to mainly Freddie Bahu,
who's a good
Timmy Fallon, unenrolled, right?
Freddie Bahu, Timmy Fallon, T.J. McKiernan, a lot of folks from Brian Donovan's campaign. Brian, others are definitely supporting me as we go into this race.
Brian Donovan, who was another candidate
Correct.
In that field.
Very good, leader in the Highlands, one of the strong folks in the Highlands, strong family in the Highlands. So that a lot of those folks have come to me, especially Freddie, and said, we think you should really run. And Timmy Fallon, another big family in the Highlands, because the representation, while Ratty's a really good person. And
well, let's stick with that for a second. In all due respect to the incumbent, I don't think anyone will argue about his sincerity and that he is a nice guy.
Yep.
But I've heard it, you've heard it, that when it comes to active representation, and this is being fair and square, that it's just not there. So you're hearing that from.
Well, I see it. I live in the district as a city councilor and a school committee member. I think one of the things I supported Ratty in his second term. I put my face on his literature. I helped him. I put lawn signs on my lawn. Got him lawn signs in my neighborhood. Was an advocate for his second term, and under the premise that he was going to go out and be a leader in our neighborhood. One of the biggest areas was the Colley High School. You had a big dynamic where people from a certain part of the city, Belvedere, were coming in saying to people in our district, in the Acre and the Lower Highlands, you need to have the high school downtown, and here's why. And we didn't see any leadership from that point from Ratty in terms of really what are the issues. Why is it important to keep it downtown or at Colley? I mean, the issue wasn't Colley versus downtown. It was, this is an opportunity to come to the table and make sure the real issues are being heard. When he won the second term, I was there at his party, and they were we're going to get a commission of people and a committee of people together to really organize and address issues we need in the Acre and in the Lower Highlands and the Highlands. Never happened. Then you look at the voting record, when you're at 79%, you miss 64 votes. in your second term, 2017.
You did the homework?
Oh yeah, it's right. It's actually in the Little Sun. It's actually where you.
Oh, the Beacon Hill roll call.
There
on
you go.
Sundays.
Great article where people vote and how they vote, and when they don't vote, it's the lowest voting count by 58 votes from the delegation. So at the end of the day, the biggest issue you're doing is you're actually showing up to vote. You don't go on junkets to Japan or Taiwan when you're a sophomore, state representative. You're not a chairman of a committee. You're there to vote, especially on override votes of the governor and what have you. Whether you vote yes or no on the override that's a separate issue. We'll debate.
It sounds like you're really pretty disappointed with his.
Well, I think he's a good person. I think at this point, when I ran, what my plan was going to do when I ran was economic development, working on the opioid crisis, safety, and education. And these are issues that I believed in my entire life. That's why I ran for school committee and spent 10 years on the school committee, which is a challenge because you're always dealing with the unions, you're always dealing with issues people don't find sexy and exciting, and working hard because education was the catalyst to getting to economic prosperity. And these issues you need to do as a state rep, especially working with people on the school committee, which I know intimately, being a member of it, dealing with the nitty-gritty issues.
Let's just talk about the field for a minute. There's Roddy, the incumbent. Roddy, and then there were two other candidates as well. Former city councilor Rithy Young, who's now employed at the high school where he's been for quite some time, and another fellow by the name of Sam Meese. So there are three men there of Southeast Asian descent. How do you view that dynamic moving forward into the election season? You're the only white guy in the race. Do you see those three guys really beating each other up, and it might give an opportunity for you?
Well, I hope not. I mean, I don't like it because at the end of the day, when you're representing 40,000 people, that's essentially the district, and half of them are of Southeast Asian descent. I mean, you want to represent everybody. It's kind of upsets me.
I'm not
actually.
implying that you won't represent everybody.
No, but I think that's a connotation that people take from that you're the white guy and all you're going to do is represent the white guy or the white woman. That's not what I want to be, and it does make me sad that there's not other folks in the race that are actually debating the issues that are of other ethnocentricities, like African American, African. We have a lot of African population in the Highlands, in the Acre. You don't see any of them running at this point in time. My goal is to try to avoid that. I think it's going to be impossible because that's the first question you ask. Like when you ran, Jim, there was 3 Irish white guys and 1 French guy, and then there was one. It gets to the point where I want everybody's vote. I'm not going to take anybody's vote for granted, and I'm going to go into the Southeast Asian community and every community and compete.
Sticking with the field for a minute, Rithy Young, when he was on the city council,
good guy.
He had to resign basically in disgrace over an ethics issue. And then more recently, there was the court dust-up between Roddy Mom, the incumbent, and Sam Meese. As you watch that unfold, what was your reaction to that?
Well, that's not in Roddy's character. Roddy's a really good person, so I didn't believe anything that came out of that. I didn't understand it. It didn't make any sense to me. Knowing Roddy as I do, that's not who he is. So quite frankly, I don't know what that's about. I think Roddy's a really good person, and I think the fact that he allegedly did something, and then obviously the judge threw it out, it speaks for itself.
Excellent.
It speaks volumes, actually.
So you think that was just a publicity stunt?
I don't know. You know what? I don't know what that was. Be honest with you. Be honest with you, I don't. But I know Roddy, and I don't believe anything that he said.
So going back to that original race that you ran in for this seat, Brian Donovan from the Highlands was in that race. Freddie Bahu from the Highlands, a well-known businessman up there on the Greater Lowell Tech. He ran as unenrolled. Both those fellows are with you. In this.
Yeah, Freddie's is one of my strongest supporters right now. He's actually on my campaign team. Brian is definitely supporting me, and good. Brian's a major leader in the Highlands, someone with a strong family.
Well, then how can we forget Dave Willett?
And I was going to just say Dave Willett. Dave Willett's actually with me as well, and Dave's a strong advocate in the Acre, leader in the Acre, someone who was a great city employee who Drake just swiped away from us. He'll do a great job.
I was talking to Jim Duggan yesterday, the town manager.
Nice
Drake,
steal, yeah.
And he was saying he's doing great out there.
Oh yeah, that'll be easy for him at the end of the day. He's definitely with me. Dave's a really good person. He's tenacious in terms of the issues. He's someone who has a great record with the North Common, helped cleaning that up, driving out the junkies, and making that really a beautiful atmosphere for people to come and have a high quality value time in a park.
So how do you feel about your chances this year?
Good.
With the support from those other candidates, with a little bit of poopy dust on
what kind of
Mom,
dust? What was that? What kind of dust?
It seems like you heard me. It seems like the stars could be aligned.
I don't. At the end of the day, I put, you know who I campaign. I do my door to door. I'm reaching out to different people in the Southeast Asian community, like Adam Prill, who's going to be with me. He's a business owner up in the Highlands, who's a leader in that community. We're going to try to grow that base. And we're going to just do what we're going to do. We're going to talk the issues. We're going to be honest with people. We're going to work hard and let the chips fall where they may.
Tell me what you think the three prominent issues are.
Well, first for me is education. I just spoke about that. That drives everything. It drives it drives safety. It drives economic development. It drives really your prosperity and your wholesome being as a human being. Safety is a big issue, especially in the Highlands and the Anchor. Opioid crisis I attach to safety because that's still a major issue. A lot of good families have lost people, and we're making some strides, but I want to work with Corey Belanger, my former colleague.
But let's just stick with education for one
Sure.
second. When you say that's a top priority,
Yeah.
specifically what though? When you say, everyone says education, everyone says economic development. Let's get to the nitty gritty.
Okay.
What, more state funding for gateway cities like Lowell? What are you talking about?
I think that's part of it, especially special education. I think that gets lost in the weeds.
Okay.
You know why it gets lost in the weeds? Because it's a growing population, and Lowell does it so well that people actually, when you talk about people leaving Lowell because of the college situation, which is happening, by the way, there's people moving into Lowell for special education needs. Part of the problem with special ed, it runs the gamut from a simple little issue all the way up to an inpatient quadriplegic. We are responsible for all of that through the education of a child, including the medical care, and oftentimes. And we're the ones who often are paying out of district costs for the severely disabled, severely injured people.
So you'll advocate for
greater
state funding for
greater
special
state
ed?
funding is a mandatory because they have something now called the circuit breaker, which they don't always fund 100%, and it doesn't pay the entire cost. So you're getting, say, $12,000 per child. We have
We
a
only
gap.
have 2 minutes left. Go ahead.
We have a gap between 12,000 and 36,000. I think it's 36. That gap we have to make up without any circuit breaker funding, and from 36,000 up to whatever the number is, it changes every year, they reimburse you. So you have a $15,000 gap for every kid who goes out of district.
That's
$12 million a year in our district. The last time I looked at the budget, it's probably higher now.
State and local officials have always complained, though, that is one of those unfunded mandates. The
Exactly.
state mandates cities and towns have to take care of this,
And that's something-
but just doesn't provide the funding. Let's just move on quickly.
Sure.
On a couple of the referendums that look like they're going to be out there, how do you feel about the millionaire's tax?
See, I'm probably going to support it, but I understand the dynamic that happened in Connecticut where you see a lot of businesses moving out. I think that some of the challenges are different.
And it's not 100% that it's on yet either.
Yeah, I think I have to look at the
Supreme Judicial
specific
Court.
reading, a specific way it's written. I think people who are making that amount of money or higher should be paying a higher tax. But when you're looking at it, like, what does it actually mean at the end of the day? You can't just lower taxes when you have some certain demands, especially when you're the city of Lowell and you're demanding so much money from the state. So that's a problem for me. I don't like increasing taxes, but I probably would vote for that.
Well, which politician does, Jim?
No, I
Let's be
understand.
serious.
Well, I voted for it, and I voted for tax increases.
Speaking of taxes, what about rolling back the sales tax?
No, I don't think it's appropriate at this time. We have so much infrastructure needs at this time that it doesn't make any sense. Would I support something like a holiday tax, like on holidays like Memorial Day? Yeah, I would support that to help generate it. I think we do need to look at cities like Lowell and even Drake that are bordering New Hampshire to see if there's anything we can do to leverage.
Well,
some
let's
of
just
those
hit on that
tax
for
breaks.
1 second. Past previous summers, the state legislature has allowed for tax-free, around August.
Yep.
Kind of. This year, there's no appetite for that. Apparently, that's not going to be happening.
I would be
But
an
would you be?
advocate.
You'd
Yeah.
be in favor of
Oh,
that?
definitely. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
All right. Well, Jim, unfortunately, we're out of time.
This is all I got? This is all
you
I
have.
got. I got
No,
so
we
much
hit
to
on a
say.
lot. We hit on a lot, and we'll have you back,
All right.
particularly if you make it out of that primary. But there are no Republicans in the race, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the primary serves. Jim, thanks for
Hey,
coming in.
Chris, thanks a lot.
Good luck with your
I
race.
appreciate it.
and,
Listen, everybody have a great day, and I'm asking for your vote way out there in September.
Thank you for
Enjoy.
tuning in to this week's edition of Sunspot, and future editions will have more candidates for the 18th Middlesex District. Have a good night, everyone.